Go-karts rank as one of the top activities to indulge in for most people. The mild competitiveness, the adrenaline boost, the uninhibited fun is unbeatable as a group activity. More than that, a go-kart is often a way people develop interest in formal racing. But have you ever wondered on how those metaphorical and literal gears turn? How exactly does a go-kart work? Well, today, we're going to be discussing exactly that. So let's dive right in. To begin, let's discuss all of the parts of a go-kart. Here's the thing. To understand anything in its entirety, you first need to break it down to its simplest components and figure out how they interact with each other. A go-kart, with its complex mechanisms, is a delight to learn about, which is why we'll discuss them one by one. First up, the seat. One of the most important and visibly significant components of a go-kart is the seat. And oddly enough, these seats can be altered to fit different types of go-karts that perform different functions, so that the seats can best adapt to the purpose given to them. For example, the most common type of seat you might see on the go-kart is a bucket seat. And like it sounds, it curves onto your back to provide you with a much more secure seat, one that won't fling you out of your cart when you inevitably turn some harsh corners mid-race. This is because it contours to your back. Another type of seat very popular in the go-kart community, especially the recreational go-kart community, is the padded seat. Off-road karts will typically have these seats, and this is because the main purpose of them is to provide comfort and security above steering convenience. These seats are more often than not larger as well, and all this padding also helps with racing on uneven terrain and can even help to fit more than just one person. Racing go-karts, on the other hand, have seats geared towards cutthroat competition. These are different to regular and recreational ones in that they need to be as light as possible to be fast and smooth during the competition. They don't really focus on comfort, so the seats need to be light and fit tightly. The better the contour of the seat fits, the easier it is for the racer to make sharp and sudden turns. These seats are usually made of a material like plastic or fiberglass. Next, we have the tires. Another very significant and visually present part of the go-kart is its tires. These tires are about 10 to 11 inches tall and about 5 to 8 inches wide, depending on the go-kart they're attached to. As you may recall, tires on a go-kart aren't super even. Wider tires are located on the back of the vehicle, and this is because most of the weight of the cart is distributed towards the rear end. The tires in front, as expected, are smaller in size and wider, and that's because they keep the center of gravity of the vehicle as low as possible. And as with most things on the go-kart, there are variations of different types of tires. Here are the three most common types of tires. Slicks are a type of tire used in go-kart for specifically dry conditions. These tires are made and used for racing. Of course, racers have their own pick for the kinds of tires they prefer. Hard tires may last longer, but they provide less grip, something softer tires don't suffer from, even if they don't wear out quickly. Wets, as the name would suggest, are tires used for wet weather conditions. They're also called rain tires and have grooves on their surface to provide strong grip in wet conditions. They're very much designed to prevent aquaplaning. Special tires are used for very specific conditions and races. That is to say, dirt, off-road, karting, or recreation. This is because concession or recreational go-karts tend to have larger tires that let the user experience a smoother ride. Now, let's move on to steering. Steering is one of the most important facets of go-karting. These steering wheels, you would know if you've ever been, are very simple design-wise and typically made of aluminum. They're about 10 to 12 inches in diameter, and for the most part, they work just like regular steering wheels. A go-kart steering wheel has about 3 mounting holes that connect to the steering shaft, which in turn is connected to a steering column, which in turn is attached to the front axle. A higher quality kart steering is wrapped with neoprene and also features molded finger grip grooves, which provide an ergonomic grip to the riders. The vibrations and hard turns on go-karts can be strenuous on your grip, which is why their primary purpose is to provide you with comfort while driving. Since they don't have power steering, you often have to keep a tight grip on the steering wheel, and all of that culminates to having a fairly bad experience with a traditionally very fun activity. Next, we have the engine, arguably the most important part of your go-kart. The engine of a go-kart is either gasoline-powered or electricity-dependent. It, of course, depends on the type of go-kart you're handling. Time for some stats. A gasoline engine on a go-kart is typically either two-stroke, which means it goes up to 18,000 RPM, or four-stroke, which goes up to 11,000 RPM. The other difference between the two-stroke engine produces higher revs, which is why it's more commonly used for racing. The four-stroke is much more quiet and runs smoother. Electric motors are now a very popular type of engine used not just in go-karts, but other vehicles as well. These engines aren't just great for the environment, but can be advantageous due to their their quicker acceleration, better weight distribution, and the ability to reverse. However, the electric motor engine has its own downsides. Their range is pretty short, and they need to recharge every 20 minutes, which can be very inconvenient. But yeah, they're also much quieter than gasoline engines, for sure. Up now, it's the chassis. Oh, here's a part of the go-kart you may not be familiar with. The chassis of the go-kart is also made up of, you guessed it, two parts. The first part is the frame. This frame, also known as the platform, is a metal construct where all the parts are mounted. The second piece, the more interesting of the two, is the body kit. It's also known as the body work and mainly consists of panels, spoilers, and bumpers. These parts protect the foundation of the go-kart, as well as its innards. They're often made out of fiberglass or hard plastic. And of course, we have the frame. Have you seen the outer metal cage around the go-kart? Well, it's known as its guard frame. It surrounds the go-kart and helps protect the main bodywork from damage. The guard frame also ensures that any collision with the wheel is avoided in a race. This is because wheel collisions in a race are super intense and can sometimes even cause a kart to flip over entirely and fall out of the race. The frames in question are obviously made out of metal, but because of that, more weight is added to the go-kart, which, as we mentioned, is what people are trying to avoid while creating go-karts. This brings us to professional racing and how racers often forego these safety metal frames, all to maximize acceleration while keeping the weight of the go-kart as light as possible. Finally, how do these parts interact with each other? Or how does a go-kart actually work? Of course, the 6 parts discussed above aren't actually all the parts necessary in a go-kart that enable it to function in a way suited to its purpose. But these 6 are essential to explain what we will right now. The engine, gasoline or electric, happily sits atop the guard frame of the go-kart. That's how it provides power to the go-kart powertrain and the drive shaft, both of which are connected to the rear axle. There are pistons inside the engine cylinders, and when they move, they spin the crankshaft, which rotates the axle. This turns the wheels and actually accelerates the go-kart. This constant acceleration is what moves the vehicle forward. As we mentioned, the steering wheel is attached to the steering shaft, and that in turn is attached to 2 tie rods on either spindle, held together by what is called a kingpin bolt. The spindle turns when you turn your steering wheel, which ensures that you can actually turn your kart left or right. The accelerator pedal, or the gas pedal, is connected to the engine, which regulates the speed at which you travel, and the braking system is fairly simple on the go-kart. There's a master cylinder installed on the vehicle that contains brake fluid. When you press the brake pedal, this fluid travels and increases friction, which makes the kart decelerate. And that's all for this video. Do you enjoy going karting? Did you know any of this? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to leave a like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications by pressing the bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. And we'll see you there next time. Thanks for watching.